never slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you are behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains that last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah. Now that I've been put through, I've never got anyone's help.
There you are. Hello, everyone. How are you? I hope you're well. Hello again. Tonight, we're going to talk about the Titan, the missing submersible. I don't know if any of you didn't know the difference between a submersible and a submarine. Well, I didn't know the difference, so I had to Google it. And if any of you guys would like to know the difference between a submersible and a submarine, here we go. Oh, you guys still see it? Okay. The difference between a submarine and a submersible is that a submarine has enough power to leave port and come back to port under its own power. A submersible has very little power reserves, so it needs a mothership that can launch it and recover it. So that is the difference between a submersible and a submarine. Also, a submersible is the size of a minivan, and a submarine, it could be up the size of a football field. I read. So next I'm gonna play the press release. I'm going to give information about the submersible submersible that's missing. I'm going to give information about it and what happened, and then after I have videos to show you guys. Oh, I also have all the people that's on the submersible and a little thing about them, and a journalist who I think his name would be pronounced David Pog, is a journalist who actually was on this same submersible last year, went to the Titanic, got stuck in the propeller and almost didn't make it back. So I'm wondering if that's what happened to this one. But last year, after 2.5 hours being missing, they were able to get out of the propeller and get up. So I'll go ahead and play. Let me see if you guys can see it, if it's sharing it. Okay, let me go ahead and play the news conference.
What I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do. Yesterday, a Canadian P3 detected underwater noises in the search area. As a result, ROV operations were relocated in an attempt to explore the origin of the noises. Although the ROV searches have yielded negative results, they continue. The surface search is now approximately 2 times the size of Connecticut, and the subsurface search is up to 2.5 miles deep, exponentially expanding the size of the search area. We also have to factor in the ever-changing weather conditions, currents, and sea states that expand the search area every hour. The good news is, what I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do so. And we hope that when we're able to get additional ROVs, which will be there in the morning, the intent will be to continue to search in those areas where the noises were detected, and if they're continuing to be detected, and then put additional ROVs down in the last known position where the search was originally taking place. The oxygen, that's just one piece of data, right? There are a lot of pieces of data that we need to consider, and we're continuously looking at that, and we'll continuously do that throughout the search. But that's not the only thing that's important, right? And right now our efforts are solely focused on the search. That certainly is a dialogue that's happening, but we're focused on searching at this point.
Missing Titanic submersible live updates. Search efforts is up to 2.5 miles deep, it says. The frantic search to find the missing Titanic submersible expanded exponentially Wednesday as crews canvassed the surface area twice the size of Connecticut and 2.5 miles deep. I thought before I heard that they were searching the size of Connecticut, and now it's double that size. You guys, I read or I heard that the air they have left is enough to last them 6 a.m. Eastern time in the morning. So 11 hours they have left of air. The search is focused on an area where Canadian aircraft detected underwater noises Tuesday and again Wednesday. The noises, it would be awesome if it happened, if it was them knocking and the solar was picking up the waves from them knocking. I don't know where they got it from, but I read in a chat someone said that it was knocking in 30-minute intervals, which would absolutely to me mean that it was humans, because I don't think anything in the ocean would just like knock at 30-minute intervals. I don't know where I heard that from, and I definitely don't think I'm going to be saying it or reading this, hearing it on the live. So the search is focused on an area where okay, I already said that. The sounds prompted redirected searches by remotely operating vehicles, the U.S. Coast Guard said early Wednesday, noting that the effort had so far yielded negative results. The 5 people on board the vessel, which vanished during a mission to explore the wreckage of the Titanic, had less than 40 hours of oxygen supply left Tuesday afternoon, a Coast Guard official said, making the bid to find the vessel a race against time. Those on the missing vessel, named Titan, have been identified as Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate Expeditions, the company behind the mission, a British billionaire, a British billionaire, Hamish Harden, the owner of Action Aviation, French dive expert Paul Henry Nargelet, and prominent Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his son Sulman. What to know about the missing sub? The submersible, named Titan, disappeared Sunday during a mission to survey the wreckage of the Titanic, which is 900 nautical miles east of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The vessel had up to 96 hours of oxygen supply, and by 1 p.m. Eastern Tuesday was down to 41 hours, the U.S. Coast Guard said. The price of a spot on the sub, which can carry 5 people, was $250,000. It was on its 3rd trip since OceanGate Expeditions began offering trips in 2021. So I'm guessing that they make a trip every year. The first one, 2021, I'm not sure how that one went. Haven't heard anything about that one. The second trip is the one I was talking about where the guy, David, the journalist, and they got stuck in the propeller. That was in 2022. And then 2023, they just vanished. So that must be the 3 trips that it's made so far. The rescue operation is not just racing the clock, it also faces an extreme environment. And here's some photos of the wreckage over 100 years. There are railings. Somebody said that there weren't any railings that it could get stuck on, but there are. This is the propeller, guys. This is massive compared to the size of the submersible, okay? This is where they got stuck, somewheres in this propeller thing. Now, you guys remember, under the water, compared to this little minivan size thing, it could have got stuck in any of them little crevices. What would you call that? I don't even know what would this be called. Like, what is it called? Rotor? I don't think it would be like a rotor or anything. I don't know. Open hatch on the Titanic's hull during a 2003 expedition, huh? 2003. Hello. That looks creepy. The Titanic's final resting place at the bottom of the ocean was found in 1985, over 70 years after it sank, allowing researchers and scientists to study and capture the wreckage in images and video. A tale of two disasters. Missing Titanic sub captivates the world days after deadly migrant shipwreck. As rescuers race to find a handful of wealthy people and explorers who vanished after launching a mission to survey the Titanic, another disaster at sea that feared to have left hundreds of people dead has been swept from the spotlight. Last week's sinking of a fishing boat crowded with migrants trying to get from Libya to Italy sparked arrests, violent protests, and questions about authorities' failure to act or find a long-term solution to the issue. But many human rights advocates are frustrated that the world seems to have already moved on and that the resources and media attention being dedicated to the Titan rescue efforts far outweigh those from the sunken migrant ship. It's a horrifying and disgusting contrast, Judith, Associate Director of Human Rights Watch, watches Europe and Central Asia Division. Whoa, that's a lot. Said in a television interview reflecting on the two apparent disparities in resources and media attention on the two crises. Let's see what. Oh, that's. Okay, as part of the Canadian Forces' support to the search for a missing submersible 380 NM south of St. John's, I don't know what NL is, from 14 Wing Greenwood, is providing surface search and subsurface acoustic detection capabilities. Oh my gosh, I cannot read again. I guess I read too much before. The Titanic brought them together, and a tiny vessel could doom them. Okay. It was early 2019, and aerospace engineer Stockton Rush was racing against the clock. The wreckage of the Titanic was slowly decaying. This is when he, this must be when he built it. And Rush felt There was suddenly a pressing need to document the world's most famous shipwreck, combined with a huge demand of people who wanted to go see it. It made perfect sense, Rush, the CEO of Ocean Gate Expeditions, who was stuck on it right now, told the German broadcaster. We just had to make the submersible to get there. Okay. The carbon fiber submersible his team built, known as the Titan, differentiated itself from similar vessels in part because it had room for at least 4 affluent travelers, including an expert. If you're going to take somebody to go see the Titanic, he said, it's going to be the most life-changing experience for them. They won't want to do it alone. 4 years later, Rush and 4 other men, united by their shared zeal for adventure and the financial resources to chase after it, converged on St. John's, Newfoundland for the start of their voyage to survey the remnants of a luxury cruise liner that sank 111 years ago. It was OceanGate's 3rd trip to the remains of the Titanic, with a fare of $250,000 per traveler. Jeff Carson, a deep-sea researcher, pointed to 2 possible explanations for the missing Titan submersible. In one scenario, a mechanical failure may have prevented the watercraft from dropping the steel weights that help it travel to the ocean floor, he said. But the likelier explanation, he said, is that the submersible is entangled in or caught underneath a piece of the Titanic wreckage. The passengers may have run into some bad luck, you think? Said Carson, a professor of Earth and Environmental Sciences at Syracuse University, who has conducted numerous scientific expeditions to the ocean floor via a submersible named Alvin. How many? Numerous expeditions. Didn't say how many. They could be like a balloon that floats to the top of your ceiling. They just can't go up anymore, he said. Based on his experience, Carson said, conditions inside the Titan are likely cold and cramped, which is a single window through which to view the surrounding darkness. Temperatures at the bottom of the ocean are just above freezing, and the inside of the submersible is likely dripping wet from condensation. Oh, man. At about 12,500 feet below sea level, the Titanic remains are in a very forbidding environment, Carson said. It is completely silent. There's no currents. There's no weather. It's just this unbelievable, dark, still place. Hey, Lily. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a member for a month. Gosh, it's been a month already. Can you believe it? The U.S. Coast Guard projects that the oxygen supply on the Titan will run out at 7:08 a.m. Eastern Thursday. Okay, I was wrong by an hour, a spokeswoman said this afternoon. OceanGate specs for the Titan submersible said it is equipped with 96 hours of oxygen. The Coast Guard said around 1 p.m. Eastern Tuesday that rescuers had 41 hours left. The increasingly desperate mission to rescue the Titan submersible is not likely to incur extra cost for the Coast Guard and by extension U.S. taxpayers, experts said. I know. See, that's what everybody was worried about, the cost. And the owner of the company that made the Titan, I don't remember the name of it right now, talking about him being sued. The man is underneath the Titanic somewhere, missing in the ocean, at the bottom of the ocean. No one can't find him. How are you going to sue him? Well, yeah, the company. However, the people inside that thing signed a waiver saying they agree that they know that they could die. It's at the top. 30, I think there's like 3 sections to initial about the possibility of dying. So there's no lawsuits that can happen. There's no nothing. But the man, the CEO, the man of the company, Mr. Rush, is down there with them. Bruh, fun size, I already know. Much less, I don't know if I'll ever see $250,000 in my life. But yeah, if I sure would have a lot of other things I'd like to do with that money than try to go see the Titanic wreckage. No. I'm having a fit about flying July 1st, flying with Penelope. I'm having a fit about that. The increasingly desperate mission to the rescue, the Titan submersible is not likely, I already said that. It's not likely to incur extra costs. I don't think that there's going to be exorbitant extra cost here, said Aaron Davenport of the Rand Corporation, who served in the Coast Guard and took part in numerous rescue missions. The ships responding to the situation were already on patrol, and saving lives is always the highest priority. The Coast Guard doesn't do underwater stuff. It patrols the surface. There are other agencies that have the capacity to do that, not to mention private companies. I wonder who they have in the water. Hey, Crystal. Is Laura's live over? David Marquette, a retired Navy captain, agreed. I think the big costs come in terms of what are the commercial entities charging the government for their services here and who is going to pick them up, he said. Oh, okay. The Polar Prince, which had accompanied the missing Titan submersible, will remain on scene until the potential bitter end as desperate rescuers continue their hunt for the missing craft. So is that the, what do you call it? The thing that it rode out on and fell off of? The Polar Prince? The equipment that's been mobilized for this is the finest in the world, the most capable in the world. Horizon Maritime President Sean Lee told reporters on Wednesday, "We have to hold out hope. I think, as you're aware, there's still life support available on the submersible, and we'll continue to hold out hope until the very end." Life support? What?
Polar Prince lost contact with the submersible.
Can you hear it?
On Sunday morning. We realistic how optimistic you will find the submersible.
The equipment that's been mobilized for this is the finest in the world, the most capable in the world. We have to hold out hope. I think, as you're aware, there's still life support available on the submersible, and we'll continue to hold out hope until the very end. All I can tell you there is all protocols were followed for the mission.
Sean, is there technical details from the Coast Guard about what's going on? Can you tell us about your staff on the ship? What are they telling you? What is it like out there? What's the mood on the ship? Any of that you can provide us?
These are extremely professional and experienced crews. This is an unprecedented situation, but I can assure you that they're handling their responsibilities very professionally and fully focused on trying to find the submersible and bring those people back safely.
This is Sadie. She's on Verizon, and she's got the new My Plan, so she gets exactly what she wants and only pays for what she needs. She picks her perks and saves on every one. Make your move to My Plan. Act now and get it for $25 when you bring your phones. It's your Verizon.
We're going to begin this hour with breaking news. Officials say they're in a critical phase in the search for a missing submersible on its way to the Titanic wreckage site. Critical because time and oxygen are running out.
Right now, there are roughly 16 hours worth of oxygen left on board, and there are still no signs of the vessel. The Coast Guard provided an update within the last hour and made it clear they are not giving up hope.
This is a search and rescue mission, 100%. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members.
The Coast Guard says it detected, quote, underwater noises in the search area. It does not know what those sounds are. 5 people are on board. The CEO of OceanGate, which owns the submersible, is the pilot. The other 4 passengers are a British billionaire, a Pakistani businessman and his son, and a French Titanic expert.
And this massive search effort is happening about 400 miles off the coast of Newfoundland. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen joins us now from St. John's, Canada. So, Ron, what other new details did we actually learn from the Coast Guard's press conference that just happened?
A lot of discussion about those noises that you refer to, and the Coast Guard is saying that it's inconclusive, that there are a lot of sounds in the ocean, that it could be any number of things, that they're all being analyzed by experts, by audiologists, and they are trying to focus the search effort in that area. It's now described as an area twice the size of the state of Connecticut. It was about the size of Connecticut a couple of days ago, and it's expanding on the surface and below the surface of the ocean. Also, a lot of talk about remotely operated vehicles. These are vessels that can go down, that are unmanned, that can go down to the deepest depths of the ocean and send back pictures, send back information about what's on the bottom. The concern, of course, is that the Titanic wreckage, which was the destination of this team, that it lies some 2.5 miles down, and it's very difficult, almost impossible to get to in a manned vehicle. This vehicle that the team was riding in was somewhat experimental. It was very novel, very unusual, and so the fear is that it is trapped somewhere on the bottom of the ocean, perhaps in the Titanic's wreckage, because they've also been searching to see if it has risen up to the surface somehow. But the bottom line is the search continues. There are more assets, more ships, more resources arriving every hour, it seems, and it continues.
You know, Ron, most of our correspondents have been reporting from Boston, but you are there in Canada. I know you've been speaking with people in town about this search. Tell us about some of your conversations.
Yes, this is where the team departed from. The company that owns the vessel that took the submersible out is right here, next to where we are here. And in the town, there's a lot of worry, a lot of watching, a lot of concern. Here's what some people we spoke to had to say.
When I think of it, I start to feel a little bit sick. It hangs over you, you know?
What they're going through is unthinkable right now. Be trapped down there in such depth.
We hold our breath for folks out there in hopes that they'll come back safe.
So, of course, people are trying to be as hopeful as they can, but as the hours tick by and the oxygen supply dwindles, hope is hard to hold on to. But again, we're not sure exactly what supply of oxygen they have there. We think it's in the final hours at this point. There have been, again, the Coast Guard saying nothing positive, only very negative sightings, negative returns from their sightings. But again, the search continues with a huge armada of international ships.
News for the generation.
I always forget to do that. Crystal must not be in here because she did not tell me. Thank you, Lily. When I mute myself for the video, I forget to unmute myself. Oh my gosh, you guys, I am so very sorry. So there's 2 remotely operated underwater missions that are searching in the ocean right now, and they're expecting more to arrive Thursday morning. There's been 2 back-to-back P3 flights totaling 14 hours of continuous coverage surveying the seas, and there's 2 C-130 flights. Oh, okay. Thank you, Lily. I was like, Crystal didn't say nothing yet. So what I was saying was, I wonder if those remotely operated underwater machines can actually go to the bottom, or if it's like can only go like certain depths. I don't know. Well, I'll have to try to find that out. Noises were detected by P3 aircraft scoring the search site of the missing Ocean Gate submersible on Tuesday and again on Wednesday, officials said in a news briefing Wednesday. A Navy analysis of noises from last night came back inconclusive, Fire Coast Guard District Captain Jamie Frederick said. These places have like long names, like 10-word names long. They must have to like abbreviate everything just to get the name of the place on their letterhead or something. I don't know. ROVs were relocated to find the origin of the noises, and more are expected to arrive Thursday morning. We don't know what the noises are, to be frank with you, Frederick said. The intent will be to continue to search in those areas where the noises were detected, then put additional ROVs down in the last known position where the original search was taking place. Carl Hartsfield. Oh, so they're going to go from where they started their mission all the way down to where they hear the noises, it sounds like. Carl Hartsfield with the Woods Hole Oceanography. Oh my gosh. Institution warned it's very difficult to discern the sources of noises in the vast ocean. He said some of the noises have been described as banging noises, but experts have to consider the context and eliminate the possibility that it could be made from human-made sources other than the Titan. Every one of those noises is being analyzed, tracked, looked for patterns, and reported upon. Oh, never mind. They don't know because they just found the noises searching, so they didn't know before if it was a banging noise. Captain Jamie Frederick, the first Coast Guard District Response Coordinator, described a desperate search for the Titan as a search and rescue mission 100% on Wednesday. We are smack dab in the middle of search and rescue, he said, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members. Frederick noted that the 5 passengers on board the Titan have a limited ratio of food and water, but it's not clear how much. I saw in another chat, I'm not sure where they got this from because I really don't like to say it if I can't show you where it's said. But, however, I heard they brought a sandwich and 1 bottle of water because they weren't going to be down there long. So that's all they brought with them is what I've heard. I'm not sure. The search for the missing submersible Titan has expanded to twice the size of the state of Connecticut, Captain Jamie Frederick, the first Coast Guard District Response Coordinator, said Wednesday. How about I just say his name? I don't need to say his title every time. The subsurface search is up to 2.5 miles deep, he added. He said the search is exponentially expanding, noting its complexity given its distance so far offshore.
The City Custom Cash Card automatically adjusts to your spending.
It won't let me mute.
You don't have to keep tabs on rotating.
It won't let me
categories.
mute the advertising.
It does the work for you. Earn cash back that automatically adjusts to your top eligible spend category with the City Custom Cash Card.
Yesterday, a Canadian P3 detected underwater noises in the search area. As a result, ROV operations were relocated in an attempt to explore the origin of the noises. Although the ROV searches have yielded negative results, they continue. The surface search is now approximately 2 times the size of Connecticut, and the subsurface search is up to 2.5 miles deep, exponentially expanding the size of the search area. We also have to factor in the ever-changing weather conditions, currents, and sea states that expand the search area every hour. The good news is, what I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do so. And we hope that when we're able to get additional ROVs, which will be there in the morning, the intent will be to continue to search in those areas where the noises were detected, and if they're continuing to be detected, and then put additional ROVs down in the last known position where the search was originally taking place. The oxygen, that's just one piece of data, right? There are a lot of pieces of data that we need to consider, and we're continuously looking at that, and we'll continuously do that throughout the search. But that's not the only thing that's important, right? And right now our efforts are solely focused on the search. That certainly is a dialogue that's happening, but we're focused on searching at this point.
Away luggage comes in a range of colors and styles, and our suitcases are...
I had to unmute right away, guys. Pakistani businessman's close friend describes enthusiastic traveler with love of Titanic lore. You guys, this is so sad. Like, this guy loved the Titanic so much that he I bet you he didn't realize, dude, I'm gonna die next to the Titanic probably. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. I cannot pronounce these names, so I'm just going to call him Dawood because that's his last name. I know, and that's going to take up more oxygen if they are frantic. Wouldn't it take up more oxygen? And this thing is so small, the size of minivans. I'm going to play a video in a little while, and it's going to explain to you exactly what the inside is. There's no seats. There's no cushion. They're sitting on the submersible itself on the inside. It's, kind of like a freaking airplane with no seats. It's just the metal bottom. That's what they're sitting on. So yeah, they're, to say the very least, not, they can't move. They're stuck on this metal hard surface for days. I just can't imagine. But I know one thing is for sure. I will never find out because I will never go down past 8 foot deep in the water. Ocean or not ocean, period. Not John, nope. I know. You know what? I want to know this. Does that thing have a light on it? Because I don't think it does, because they say all they see is complete darkness with no sound, no light. It's completely silent, completely dark down there, and very cold, and possible condensation inside of it. I forgot what I was just going to say. That thing is like 36 degrees inside. So they are freezing inside of this thing. Then they have condensation dripping off of, the top, the whole thing, dripping on them. They are wet and freezing in a dark, silent little piece of metal. Could you imagine? So how would it see the Titanic if it's dark? It had not a light and everything is dark. Then how would they see the Titanic? Please, somebody explain that to me. I don't understand. Anyway, Dawood, the wealthy Pakistani businessman who was aboard the OceanGate vessel with his 19-year-old son. I also heard that the 19-year-old son wanted to back out. Exactly, Lily. Like, compared to the ocean, they're in like a Diet Coke can, like I'm drinking out of. They're like a freaking ant that you squash on the ground compared to the ocean. Some kind of lightning. Do you know where they get the lighting from? No, because they said, I was going to say unless they have a light and they turned it off to save power, but that's not true either. That's not right. Enjoys taking ambitious trips to exotic locals around the world and learning about the Titanic at museum exhibitions, according to a man who has known him since they were kids. Muhammad Hashim, 48, a businessman who lives in Lahore, said in a phone interview Wednesday afternoon that he met Dawood when they were in high school. Dawood tends to be reserved and introverted, Hashim said, but the two men kept in close touch over the years. They last spoke on Thursday, the day before Dawood and his son Sulman started their voyage. The elder Dawood called Hashim from Ontario, where he was preparing to board a flight to St. John's, Newfoundland. Hashim was not aware that Sulman was with him. Huh? Oh, the friend didn't know that the son was with him. Okay. He wasn't nervous at all, Hashim said, explaining that Shahzada is a devoted traveler who has visited places like Antarctica and Kalahari Desert and arid savanna in southern Africa. Hashim is trying, but that's all on land. Hashim is trying to remain hopeful, but he knows the odds are increasingly stacked against the Dawoods. I hope they're a happy outcome, but I have no idea what to say at the moment. We are keeping our fingers crossed, and that's it. Yeah. The French ship said Atlante is expected to arrive at the search area for Titan at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Wednesday. So I guess it should be there, the French Maritime Ministry said. On board is a Victor 6000 exploration robot that can dive to a depth of 4,000 meters or roughly 13,100 feet. Oh, good. That's awesome. The remains of the Titanic, which sank more than a century ago, settled at a depth of around 12,500 feet. So hopefully this Victor 6000 is there and hopefully in the water by now and searching for this. And it can go as far down as the Titanic is. Hopefully this will find it, you guys. 3 vessels arrived to the search area for the missing OceanGate submersible Wednesday morning. The John Cabot, which has side-scanning sonar capabilities, is working alongside the Scandi Vinland and the Atlantic Merlin. Now, there's like different countries coming in to help with this search. So I'm sorry if I cannot pronounce any of these names. Wednesday's sea conditions include 6 to 7 foot swells and 23-mile-an-hour winds in 50-degree Fahrenheit weather. The Coast Guard will hold a press briefing at 1 Eastern on the search efforts. We've already heard pieces of that. That's another thing, you guys. Like, this ocean is just like there's no telling what Mother Nature has in store for them in this search. So they have to make sure that they are safe first before they can do anything else. The Explorers Club, a society dedicated to scientific exploration and field study, is asking its members to lobby Congress to approve the use of a deep-sea rover in the search for Titan. They have to get approval from Congress? Like, before tomorrow morning? 2 passengers on Titan, Hamish Harding and Paul Henry Nargelet, are part of the Explorers Club. A team out of the UK named Magellan has an ROV remotely operated vehicle rated for 6,000 meters, which is loaded on a plane and ready and waiting to help. The letter, obtained by NBC News, said in part, This help has been requested by expedition organizer OceanGate, but the U.S. government and U.S. Coast Guard have not yet given them permits to participate. Are you kidding? The letter asks lawmakers to please push the United States Coast Guard to approve these assets and mentions tapping or pings picked up on sonar equipment. I am so sorry. Hold on one moment while I let Penelope out of the room and catch a breath because this just made me upset. Did you guys hear what I said? There's a piece of equipment that can go down to the bottom of the floor on its way there on a plane. Maybe could be there, maybe could be close by. But the United States government and the United States Coast Guard has not approved for them to help in the search. Are you kidding me? You have 5 people vanished in a minivan-sized submersible. Missing, gone, vanished at the bottom of this ocean, 12,500 foot deep. And you're not going to allow them to help in the search. Why would you have to say so anyway? Somebody else can have a say so. I don't know. This really aggravated me. I'm so sorry. 2 senior Department of Homeland Security officials told NBC News on Wednesday morning that it's more accurate to describe what was heard overnight in the search for Titan as sounds or noises rather than banging. You have to remember, I don't know if they have watches on, would it work down there? Like, they probably have no idea if it's morning or night, and they probably have no idea probably what day it is. Can you imagine, with everything else that we've mentioned, what could be going through their minds? Now, this is something else. The distinction is key because banging could indicate the sound was human-made. Further analysis was done after an internal government memo was sent out that was cited by several news outlets Tuesday night, and officials determined they can't characterize it as banging. So it's not banging. Make up your mind. The Coast Guard said a Canadian P-3 aircraft detected underwater noises in the search area, and ROV operations were relocated to explore the origin of that noise with no results yet. Hamish Harding, a British billionaire and a member of the crew on the missing submersible Titan, was a Blue Origin space flight last year. He went into space, dude. This billionaire went into space also. He was part of the 6-person crew aboard Blue Origin's 5th human spaceflight on the New Shepard rocket in June 2022. Maybe he only takes his trips in June. Harding, the owner of Action Aviation, is known as an adventurer and holds 3 Guinness World Records, including the longest duration at full ocean depth by a crewed vessel. In March 2021, he and ocean explorer Victor Vescovo dived to the lowest depth of the Mariana Trench. An unidentified command has been established in collaboration with the U.S. Coast Guard, the U.S. Navy, Canadian Coast Guard, and OceanGate Expeditions in the search for Titan. Is this even in United States waters? I don't think so, because it's like off the coast of... Is this an American? Yeah. No. Where was this made? Why does the United States have so much power over this search? Is that where it's from? Is that where it was made? As of Tuesday morning, a total of 10,000 square miles had been searched with help from a slew of assets, including from Canada, a Bahamian research vessel, and a French research vessel. 2 research vessels. Titan launched at 8 a.m. Sunday and was expected to resurface at 3 p.m., but an hour and 45 minutes into their dive lost contact with the research vessel Polar Prince. This might answer some of your questions. Passengers on Titan are likely doing what they can to survive, obviously. I thought it took... me too. That's what I thought at first, too. That's why I'm like... That's why I understand why the United States has so much power over allowing someone to search. Someone can answer that question. I would love to know. The passengers on board the missing vessel Titan are likely doing what they can to stay alive. You didn't need to tell us that. Aaron Newman, a former passenger on the Submersible, said, and an investor in OceanGate told NBC's Today. He called OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush, who was piloting the Submersible, an amazing guy who built his vision of taking people to the ocean's floor. What lasted 3 years. French dive expert Paul Henry Nardelet is humble, soft-spoken, and probably the leading sub expert out there, while British billionaire Hamish Harding has broken records and done amazing things, Newman said. These are people who lived on the edge and loved what they were doing, Newman said. If anything's going on, these are people that are calm and thinking this through and doing what they can to stay alive. It's a good set of people. Well, that's good to know. At least we know that they know to stay calm. Now, we don't know if they're actually able to stay calm in this situation because they know to stay calm. However, when you're in that active moment of being stuck and not knowing what to do, not knowing what's going on, and sitting and racking your heads and being calm, it's very well possibility, since these are great men. However, we don't know unless we're in that situation. Hoping they remain calm for their sake for the air. But like we heard on the video, the air is not the only thing that they have going on with that vessel that is time. You know, I thought it took off from Aaron Newman, a former passenger of the missing Titan, said the descent to the bottom of the ocean is like going to another planet, and recalled the staggering darkness and cold. As you start to descend through the water column, it is an amazing journey to see the light very quickly disappear, and within 5-10 minutes, you're in pitch dark. Newman, who also is an investor in OceanGate, said on NBC's Today Wednesday. So anyone in that would be in complete darkness if they didn't have power still at this point. So anyone in that would be in complete darkness if they didn't have power still at this point. So if they had power, they wouldn't be in complete dark. Inside of it. Okay. Inside of it they're talking about. Let's see what this says. This one's 5 minutes long. Let me mute. Yes, fun size. Exactly. I don't know how my Wi-Fi is down here. Okay, I'm not muting myself anymore. This says this is not a Disney ride. We're going places that very few people have been. This is inventing things. There are risks, right? And we know that. Says the guy. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? I know you can hear me now, right? Hello, hello, hello. Nothing? Okay, thank you. So this guy is someone who has been on the Titan previously and is part investor in the company. He says this is not a Disney ride. The hell it's not. You're controlling this thing with a remote control from a PlayStation or a PC. Did y'all see that? As if. Evidently it worked 2 other times. But the 3rd time it just didn't work. Are you serious? There are risks, right? And we know that. The search patterns used in the race to find Titan can be seen in this image released by the U.S. Coast Guard. Holy guacamole. Can anyone make any sense out of this? Anyone? 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 I don't know. It's grids of what they've searched. It looks like they've overlapped areas. So, is this the size of Connecticut? Dude, I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do with that thing, actually. The Coast Guard said around 10,000 square miles had been searched as of Tuesday and that the searches were ongoing. Canadian Coast Guard, Navy, and private search and commercial vessels with remotely operated vehicles have responded or were en route to help Tuesday, official says. The U.S. and Canada also have planes searching. There's cause for hope, Explorers Club president says. There's cause for hope. I just said that. The president of the Explorers Club, a U.S.-based international society aiming to promote scientific exploration and field study, has said. Another one that's like 10 words long. In the midst of news that underwater noises had been detected in the frantic search for Titan, Richard Garriott, president of the Explorers Club, said there was cause for hope based on data from the field. We understand that likely signs of life have been detected at the site. We understand that likely signs of life have been detected at the site. And people are turning that around and saying different things. So I'm glad I read that. There are likely signs of life that has been detected. Garriott said he believed the U.S. Coast Guard and others aiding in the search for the missing sub are doing everything possible with all resources they have. He said members of the Explorers Club had rallied to make sure that search and rescue crews were fully aware of the capabilities and experiences club members could provide. He said the group was working on approval for the UK-based Magellan 6,000-meter certified remotely operated vehicles, which have been at the Titanic site many times, to be deployed to the site to aid in the search. They are waiting for an approval, working on an approval. Okay? Why can't you just let them go out there? So this is Dawood. This is the guy that has his son with him. Dawood has ties to an organization founded by King Charles. I wonder if that's how he... Oh, no, they all got money. An organization founded by King Charles III to tackle youth unemployment around the world has said it has a long-standing relationship with Shahzada Dawood, the prominent Pakistani businessman who was on the missing sub along with his son. We are shocked by this awful news, praying for a rescue and sending our thoughts to his family during this deeply challenging time, said Will Straw, Chief Executive Officer of Prince's Trust International. And this is what he looks like. Dawood's father, Hassan Dawood, was a founding patron of Prince's Trust International. The Engro Foundation, which Dawood is on the board of, has supported the organization's work in Pakistan, according to a Prince's Trust spokesperson. Dawood has been an advisor to Prince's Trust International in various capacities, including sitting on its global advisory board, with a focus on the organization's work in Pakistan, the spokesperson said. I know that it's not going to let me play it.
The urgent search intensifying this morning to find the private submersible with 5 people on board. Coast Guard officials looking by air and sea for the Titan, designed for underwater tourism. Ocean Gate Expeditions, which operates the exclusive trips, started its Titanic voyages in 2021. Colin Taylor went on one last summer with his son.
We spent 4 or 5 hours at the wreck itself.
OceanGate uses the Starlink satellite to maintain an internet connection, and the Underwater Titan team relies on text messages for guidance.
And the text messaging is incredibly slow, so you're using a shorthand version of words to communicate with the ship on the surface.
The OceanGate CEO explaining some more of the ship's mechanics in a CBS interview last year.
We can use these off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World. We run the whole thing with this game controller.
There it is, you guys. The whole kit and caboodle of the submersible. They are driving the thing with that.
Come on! It seems like this submersible has some elements of MacGyver-y jerry-rigness. I mean, you're putting construction pipes as ballast.
I don't know if I'd use that description of it, but there's certain things that you want to be buttoned down. So the pressure vessel is not MacGyver at all, because that's where we work with Boeing and NASA and the University of Washington. Everything else can fail. Your thrusters can go, your lights can go, you're still going to be safe.
The submersible, which holds 5 people, is just over 22 feet long, just over 9 feet wide, and 8.3 feet high. The Titanic tourism industry has boomed since the iconic movie. And OceanGate's undersea exploration is one of the most exclusive experiences, coming with a price tag of $250,000 for previous trips.
We are taking scans.
The CEO telling NBC News in August, OceanGate has made some discoveries of its own with its high-resolution cameras.
On the port side forward anchor, which has been photographed many times, we were able to pick up the manufacturer's name. The Titanic experts were super excited.
But this morning, in those waters where the Titanic once sank, it's now a race against time.
And Kristen, how were tourists even allowed to get that close to the wreckage?
Right, Savannah. You know, more people have been into space than down to that depth. So these missions have traditionally been reserved for scientists and researchers. OceanGate's website says that it is conducting this in accordance with the Underwater World Heritage Guidelines, meaning that it can go to that depth with tourists, but isn't allowed to disturb the site at all. And the online, the itinerary lists 2 more trips that they had been planning to take in 2024. Savannah?
Fascinating. All right, Kristen, thank you.
This is Sadie. She's on Verizon.
I'm unmuted. Inside Titan, like a car that you drunkenly drove into the ocean. You guys, you saw how small that was when that man was sitting in there? Could you imagine 5 people crammed in there? And I don't even know how one would get to the toilet, aka a big huge Ziploc bag underneath the window with a sliding privacy curtain. How the hell would they get there? I just don't get it. I just don't get it. The Titanic tourist submersible, missing with 5 people aboard, is a simple and small vessel with a carpeted floor instead of seats. Oh, it's carpeted. Not like it'll be very much more comfortable. And barely enough room inside for more than 1 person at a time to stretch out, according to previous passengers and promotional documents. The Titan's dimensions are 22 feet by 9.2 feet by 8.3 feet, according to a diagram of the vessel used in promotional documents. Only one of the passengers is able to fully extend their legs in the diagram, which describes the arrangement as a typical seating configuration. Yeah, it does. The Titan's oh, I said that already. There's no traditional toilet aboard the vessel, which is steered with a video game controller, previous passengers have detailed. It's basically a car that you drunkenly drove into the ocean, Mike Rice, a writer and producer who has worked on The Simpsons, who took the trip last year, said on his podcast. There's no traditional toilet. It's a huge, probably commercial-sized Ziploc bag. It's really a bit like being an astronaut going into space. So more people have gone into space than have gone down to the Titanic. I don't understand how people actually dove down there. Like, didn't they have like actual divers? Sorry, but we only speak English in here. I don't know if anyone in here speaks Spanish. I don't know if you're trolling me. The harsh and unforgiving environment that rescuers must navigate in the search for Titan can be more easily compared to outer space than many places on Earth. It's pitch black down there. It's freezing cold. The seabed is mud, and it's undulating. Undulating? What? You can't see your hand in front of your face. How are you going to see the toilet? Historian and Titanic expert Tim Malton said in an interview with NBC News Now. It's really a bit like being an astronaut going into space. Look, y'all, 5 people. How the heck? I thought the window in the front was bigger than that. But unlike space, humanity's presence deep in the world's oceans is minimal, and the technology for search and recovery missions is limited. The sub's oxygen supply is the most pressing factor in the search, but it's hardly the only challenge, said Jamie Pringle, a professor of forensics geosciences at Keele University in the United Kingdom. Scouring such extreme depths is challenging because the seafloor is more rugged than land, he said. Let's see what this one is. Please work. Please, please, please. They've picked up sound, a banging sound or a knocking sound that they're trying to find where it's coming from. Evidently, this isn't going to play either. The United States Coast Guard and those aiding in the search for Titan are in a race against time, with the vessel having a finite oxygen supply. The sub had up to 96 hours of oxygen supply, and by 1 p.m. Eastern Tuesday afternoon, U.S. Coast Guard officials said it had roughly 41 hours left. And just so that anyone hasn't heard yet, their air supply is thought to run out in 11 hours. 7. Please stop. Thank you. There's 11 more hours of air in that. Sorry, but I don't know what he's saying, what he's trolling, so they're blocked. I don't know who they are. They're blocked. I don't care. I forgot. Yes, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the morning. Oh, well, I said I don't know if anyone here. Hold on, let me. Crystal, you can translate. I'll unblock them. I thought they were trolling in Spanish because I said none of us speak Spanish. I'll play this video while I do it. Holy crap, moly, which one is this? Yes. Pause. Share this tab instead. I'll go ahead and play this. I mean, mute. Can you hear it?
that there was, it's not certified. It is not a certified vessel, and that there was tremendous concern with its viability going forward as a dependable, dependable underwater vessel. I have seen.
I'm not mean.
I have seen those reports, and that
I want y'all to see this comment up here that I saw. I'm trying to find it.
Yeah. Space versus.
Damn it. It said,
just because this is
in survival, let me find this. It says that you're supposed to knock for 3 minutes every 30 minutes. That makes sense.
As we look here at some of the questions that are coming in, people are asking some questions such as ABC wants to know. But again, to be clear, this is an extremely active search that is going on right now in the North Atlantic. More and more assets are coming in every few hours. More things are arriving. So the crew members are now, we're hearing, walking up to the podium. Let's listen in. Interactive coverage after the press conference concludes here on WFLA Now.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Today, we'll be hosting another press briefing to discuss any updates regarding the search and rescue case for the submersible Titan that's located approximately 900 nautical miles offshore in the vicinity of the wreck of the Titanic. Today, we will have speaking Captain Frederick, response coordinator of the 1st Coast Guard District. He'll be giving a brief statement followed by about 10 minutes for questions and answers. Thank you so much again. Let me please introduce Captain Frederick.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Captain Jamie Frederick with the 1st Coast Guard District, and I'll provide an update on our ongoing search efforts for the Titan submarine. Behind me, or beside me, I should say, you'll see several subject matter experts from the Unified Command who will introduce themselves momentarily. These individuals represent only a small fraction of the many dedicated professionals working around the clock on this complex response effort. We understand this is an extremely difficult time for the families of the missing crew members aboard the Titan, and our thoughts go out to them and the crew. The Unified Command team is working tirelessly to bring all available assets and expertise to bear as quickly as possible in response to this complex operation. And we remain in close contact with the family members and the crew to ensure they are fully aware of our current and future search efforts. Additionally, we have been in close contact with the British and French consulates general to ensure that they are fully appraised of our efforts, and we are ensuring that their concerns are being addressed. We're incredibly grateful for the full spectrum of international assistance that has been provided, including an expert submariner from the Royal Navy, who's here with us, serving aboard as a critical member of our team. Additionally, a team of highly trained French ROV operators departed St. John's last night are en route to aid the search. Moreover, our Canadian partners have been providing critical leadership and significant response capabilities since the beginning of our efforts. Again, this is an incredibly complex search operation requiring both surface and subsurface elements, and our unified approach is critical. The location of the search, 900 miles east of Cape Cod and 400 miles southeast of St. John's, makes it exceptionally difficult to mobilize large amounts of equipment quickly. In spite of those challenges, we've been able to provide continuous air and surface search assets, as well as additional ROV capability to search below the surface. We currently have 5 surface assets searching for the Titan, and we expect 10 total surface assets to search in the next 24 to 48 hours. There are 2 ROVs actively searching, and several more are en route and will arrive by tomorrow morning. We've received incredible support with aviation assets from our Coast Guard Air Station in Elizabeth City, the Air National Guard, and Canadian Armed Forces. Today, there are 2 back-to-back P3 flights. One is ongoing now as I speak, totaling 14 hours of continuous on-scene coverage, and 2 C-130 flights, also one ongoing now throughout the day and into the evening. Yesterday, a Canadian P3 detected underwater noises in the search area. As a result, ROV operations were relocated in an attempt to explore the origin of the noises. Although the ROV searches have yielded negative results, they continue. Additionally, the data from the P3 aircraft has been shared with our U.S. Navy experts for further analysis, which will be considered in future search plans. The surface search is now approximately 2 times the size of Connecticut, and the subsurface search is up to 2.5 miles deep, exponentially expanding the size of the search area. We also have to factor in the ever-changing weather conditions, currents, and sea states that expand the search area every hour. There's an enormous complexity associated with this case due to the location being so far offshore, and the coordination between multiple agencies and nations. We greatly appreciate the outpouring of support and offers to provide additional equipment. The Unified Command continues to prioritize assets and resources in order to provide the best capability in the most timely manner. This includes weighing multiple factors to identify the most effective resources available to the response operation. With careful consideration to timeliness of equipment arriving on scene, usefulness, and ability to deliver assets to the search area. Over the past 48 hours, we have, through incredible unity of effort, mobilized and implemented a tremendous amount of expertise and response capability. In addition to the ships and aircraft previously mentioned, we've dispatched 2 subject matter experts from U.S. Navy NAVSEA Subsalv, who will serve as search coordinators on scene for underwater search operations. So I've been stressing unity of effort a lot in this statement, and that's because it is absolutely critical to this complex operation. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the crew of the Titan and their loved ones. We will continue to work as hard and as quickly as possible in an effort to locate them. I will take a few questions, but before I do that, I do want I'm going to have each of the members of the team here just introduce themselves, and then I'll go ahead and take some questions.
Good afternoon. I'm Paul Hankins. I'm the director for salvage operations with the U.S. Navy's Supervisor of Salvage.
Hello, I'm Carl Hartsfield from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Commander Rich Cantharia. I'm an exchange officer currently serving on the staff of Commander Submarines Atlantic at Norfolk, Virginia.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant Commander Christy Butler, working closely with Captain Frederick from RCC Boston, Search and Rescue Mission Coordinator. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy.
So a couple things. One, I think when you're in the middle of a search and rescue case, you always have hope. That's why we're doing what we do. With respect to the noises specifically, we don't know what they are, to be frank with you. The P3 detected noises. That's why they're up there. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they put sonar buoys in the water.
The good news is, what I can tell you is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected, and we'll continue to do so. And we hope that when we're able to get additional ROVs, which will be there in the morning, the intent will be to continue to search in those areas where the noises were detected, and if they're continuing to be detected, and then put additional ROVs down in the last known position where the search was originally taking place. I hadn't heard 30-minute intervals. So here's what I can tell you. I am not a trained ear for underwater aquatics. That's why we have a team of experts that are analyzing that data. That data was sent immediately to the Navy last night, and it was analyzed overnight. They're still looking at it, but I can tell you that it's inconclusive. But again, I think the important piece is we're searching in the area where the noises were detected.
Captain, you didn't talk about a timeline. Can you talk about what timeline you're working on in conjunction with the teams that are there?
It's a timeline in what respect?
How much oxygen they have left on?
Oh, okay. So, well, in terms of, so we talked about the oxygen number. I think you're all tracking the oxygen number. I think there's an important point with that, though. The oxygen, that's just one piece of data, right? There are a lot of pieces of data that we need to consider. And, you know, we're continuously looking at that, and we'll continuously, do that throughout the search. But that's not the only thing that's important, right? And right now our efforts are solely focused on the search. That certainly is a dialogue that's happening, but we're focused in the middle of search and rescue, and we'll continue to put every available asset that we have in an effort to find the Titan and the crew members.
Captain,
Can you confirm that some sort of rectangular object has been spotted? There was some sort of report about that. I don't know.
So a couple things. So the ROVs, each ROV brings different capability. The ROVs that are diving today, what's the depth on the 4,000? Yeah, 4,000 meters. And some additional ROVs that'll be arriving tomorrow have additional depth capability. With respect to an object, so yesterday one of the aircraft did see an object. I will tell you this: in search and rescue missions, when aircraft are flying continuously, there is stuff out in the ocean that is floating. We went back, we looked at it. It wasn't. We didn't determine it to be debris. We don't think it correlates with the case, and it is not uncommon at all during an active search to see things, and then we go and look at them. So
When were these noises first heard? How long did they exist for? And if I could also ask, do you have any information in terms of food and water that there might have on board?
yeah, so so several P3 flights have heard noises as yesterday, and we put assets there. We relocated assets immediately. With respect to food and water, it's my understanding there are some limited rations. I can't tell you exactly how much they have aboard, but they do have some limited rations aboard the vessel. Listen, I think you need to be careful. We need to have hope, right? But I can't tell you what the noises are. But what I can tell you is, and I think this is the most important point, we're searching where the noises are, and that's all we can do at this point.
Captain, there's right now about the status of the submersible noises, and are the noises continuing now at this spot?
So I just wanted to. So it was my understanding that the P3 had heard some noises today as well. But so I do want to take just an opportunity to invite Carl to the podium just to talk a little bit about. He has a little bit more expertise in underwater acoustics, and maybe just to speak to that in general, because again, there are noises below the surface of the ocean, so I'll just turn it to Carl.
Carl, can you spell your name? Yes, Carl Hartsfield. So again, Carl Hartsfield from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So the ocean is a very complex place. Obviously, human sounds, nature sounds, and it's very difficult to discern what the source of those noises are at times. But I can tell you that this team has multiple sensors. They're in the area. They're sending data back expeditiously to the best in the world people to analyze that data, and then they're feeding the results of that analysis back to the unified team, and they're making decisions. So Woods Hole is here in an advisory role, but by our expertise, what I see is a very tight operational loop that's making decisions based on data, and nothing is ruled out. There have been multiple reports of noises, and every one of those noises is being analyzed, tracked, looked for patterns, and reported upon.
Can you describe what the noise? Can you describe what the noise sounds like that they're hearing?
Well, you know, the noises, again, very complex in the ocean. You have to be an acoustic analysis, and you have to have context. They're trying to put all the pieces together. The noises have been described as banging noises. But again, they have to put the whole picture together in context, and they have to eliminate potential man-made sources other than the Titan.
Is it possible that a ship in the ocean, or even some mammals out there could mimic that kind of sound?
So I can tell you from my experience with acoustics that there are sounds by biologics that sound man-made to the untrained ear, but I can assure you that the people listening to these tapes are trained. There are a lot of vessels in the area, and they each make noise, right? So all of that has to be eliminated, and it's analysis over time. Plus, as the captain said, the team is searching in the right area. So if you continue to do the analysis, look for different patterns, and search in the right area, you're doing the best you possibly can do with the best people on the case.
And Captain, apparently there was a deep ocean salvage system flyway that was sent there to the location. Can you tell if it's on site yet, and how it operates, and how long it would take the rest of it to
Which system is he speaking about? You know the system. What's the system that you're talking about?
Flyway deep ocean salvage system.
That's just a hydraulic, a crane.
Yeah. So that's what I thought. So that's a piece of equipment. It's a crane piece of equipment. There are a lot of pieces of equipment flowing in through St. John's right now. One thing I did want to mention, I think it's important. Some of the ROV capability that's arriving soon is really great, incredible capability. One thing I want to point out is that French team that's coming in to serve aboard with their equipment aboard a French ship. They bring some state-of-the-art equipment, and so once they get on, we're going to have more assets down to look, and we'll continue to put them where we think the best location is.
The search area expanded. How many days passed? Are you still optimistic that you're gonna find the ghost?
So how many days? Is it just how many days, or so? Well, so we have to remain optimistic and hopeful when you're in a search and rescue case. So we're right in the middle of the search and rescue case. So I don't want to get into a discussion about when that would end with respect to this case. What I will tell you, though, I'm happy to explain to you kind of how that process were to work. The Coast Guard prosecutes search and rescue cases on a daily basis, and sometimes we don't find what we're looking for, and you have to carefully consider all of the factors, and there are a lot of factors you consider. And then after you consider all of those factors, sometimes you're in a position where you have to make a tough decision. We're not there yet. But if we continue to search, potentially we could be at that point. But again, we're not there yet. And that's a discussion that we will have with the family long before I'm going to discuss that here publicly.
What does the rescue operation look like? What does the rescue operation look like?
I'm sorry, man. Yeah, so I can't put a number on the, like, I'm not going to put a percent. I don't have a percentage number. What I would tell you is that is just one data point, and there are more data points than that we have to look at. So right now we continue to search, and we'll have that later. Sure. So the report. So the noises were heard by a Canadian P3, and that was this morning and some yesterday. I don't know specifically, or they're 30-minute intervals. But again, I really think the important point to that is we're in the air, we're searching there. We moved assets and we're searching there. And and we'll continue to do so. Yeah, I don't. So listen, whether it's operable or whether it's sitting on the ocean floor, whether it's in the sea column, whether it's in the surface, it's all speculation, and we're just not in the business of speculation. We're in the business of searching, and we're putting everything we can with the data we have to search for the vessel. I think we'll take one more question. Go ahead, sorry. Yeah. So we asked for some additional subsurface support, and we got that through the Navy, through a liaison officer. He's just one of many team members, and we're greatly appreciative of the British government and all the support they've given us.
Can we expect a daily update now on this?
So I think the plan will be to do a daily like this. I'm not going to lock into that right now, but we'll keep you informed, and certainly if there's any major developments, we'll let you know. Thank you very much.
Did you say submarine? Sir, are you saying submarines are assisting?
Crystal, I do not eat alligator. Okay, humans eating human is called cannibalism. What do you call an alligator eats another alligator? Hungry. So I know that I've read like everything that the press conference and everyone else is saying. So I know that I read about some of the passengers too, but I'm just gonna go ahead and show you and their names. Oh. I want some ball peanuts. I think I'm going to the store after this and go get me some ball peanuts. Do you know? Okay, so Laura said that she makes her own, or she gets them at the gas station, which I've seen before. But like Dollar General over here has like cans of ball peanuts, and they're really, really good. Like my ex stepdaughter, Kevin's daughter, when she lived with me, she loved them things, and I was always so afraid to try them. I was like, ew, soggy peanuts. And then I tried them, and I was like, soggy peanuts. They're good. Okay, so can you see it? Did I put it up there? No, I didn't. Here we go. I'm just going to put the names and show you their pictures so that you can like see who's out there. So this is the CEO, Stockton Rush. He's the pilot, and he's the one that was in charge of building this thing. Then we have Hamish Harding. That is the billionaire right here. Look, he's on a ship right now in his picture. Then that's the Scream dude. Paul Henry Nargelet, a French maritime expert. Shahzada Dawood and Sulman Dawood, the father and son, Pakistani businessman. Those are the 5 people that are trapped inside of this place. Crystal, get the recipe from Laura and try it out. You might like it. So these are the 5 people and their pictures so that you can see what they look like. I'm not going to read all about them because I've read enough about all this. So this is just interviews. This is the guy, the journalist David Pogue, that was on this very same submersible, the Titan, last year. So I'm going to go ahead and play this for you. They're not long.
You were on one of those subs. I watched the story you did for CBS this morning. I almost had a panic attack watching you get into that thing. It's so small. How big is it, and how long were you told you could survive in it?
It's about the size of a minivan, but it's a cylinder.
So it holds 5 people. There's no chairs, there's no couches. You are sitting on the floor with your back against the curved sides. As I'm sure you've heard, there's 4 days worth of air. There's 3 different systems. There's as your previous guest referred to, there's a scrubber, the same ones they have in spacecraft, that converts the carbon dioxide you breathe out back into oxygen. If that fails, there are these, they look like fly strips. You hang them from the ceiling, that they're backup scrubbers. And if that fails, they have scuba tanks, oxygen tanks, under the floor of this thing that you can pull out. But there's no food and water apart from the one sandwich and the one water bottle you bring with you. All there is by way of a toilet is basically a big Ziploc bag.
Oh my gosh. All right. At one point when you were on the sub, you lost communication with the mothership on the surface, only for about 2.5 hours, right? And what did you do when you lost communication? Did you just drift around, or what happened?
I should be clear on this. So they never lost contact with the sub. There's a ship on the surface that can send short text messages down to the sub beneath the sea. There's no GPS underwater. There's no radio underwater. So all they can do is send these little text messages. The submersible does not know where it is relative to the Titanic. It might be right over there. It might be right over there. They can't see anything. There's no windows except a tiny round porthole at one end. So up on the ship, the control room looks down and says, it's off to your right by 100 yards. They direct the sub. So what happened for a few hours last summer was during one of these dives, the ship on the surface was giving directions to the submersible on the seafloor that were wrong. Something went wrong with the directional system, and they spent the whole day looking for this Titanic, never found it. And so these passengers who'd paid $250,000 a head had to come back to the surface having seen nothing.
So I got to get your reaction when you hear that they've lost this sub, that they lost control and communication of it at an hour and 45 minutes into the descent, which I think that's about how long it takes to get down there, or no?
That would be about halfway down, 2/3 of the way down.
2/3 of the way down. And then by 9 p.m. Sunday night, at launch Sunday morning, they reported it missing. What do you imagine is happening on board?
So first of all,
aside from
context.
panic, I mean, I just can't, you know.
Yeah. This is the only submersible in the world still operating that can go to the Titanic. So it is a one-off. It is a one of a kind. There's not, you know, it's not like an iPhone made by the thousands. There's one of it made by this one man who's had experience building airplanes and submarines, Stockton Rush. He runs the company. And so, you know, going in that, you know, it's not going to be Delta Airlines level safety. You sign a waiver. It says, these are all the different ways I could die. I mean, they outline it for you. So there's so many mechanical problems and weather delays. I mean, on my dive to the Titanic, we only got 37 feet down when there was a mechanical problem and we had to come back up to the surface. And that's typical. I mean, they take tourists out for a week at a time. And so far this summer, they've barely made it to the Titanic even once, even though during each week they have 5 potential days to dive. So you are well aware that there's an improvised quality, there's a dangerous quality, that it's something that is not made for consumers.
Is there a way, you said there, is there a way to radio for help if you're on that sub?
There's no way to radio for help. There's no, radio waves don't travel underwater. So there are 2 systems of communicating with the submersible. One is every 15 minutes, it sends out a ping, an audio ping. Sound waves travel through water. So the surface ship picks that up and says, okay, they're still alive. The second way is while they're within sound range, they can send little text messages, short text messages that say, usually it's, you know, the Titanic is 100 yards to your right, that kind of thing. They've lost both of those signals. That's not what happened last summer. This is really terrifying. I mean, if you think about it, there could only be one of 2 things that have happened. So if the power went out, then they couldn't send pings and they couldn't send texts. but maybe they came to the surface and they're bobbing away someplace. I will say they have 7 redundant ways to get to the surface. They have 3 different kinds of weights they can drop. They have propellers that push them up. They have airbags they can inflate 7 different ways, and several of them work even if the power is gone. So if they are alive, they should have been able to get to the surface using one of these methods. Unless one of 2 bad things have happened. One is that they got snagged on something, maybe one of those ghost nets, the big fishing nets that fishermen cut loose, or maybe a piece of the Titanic, or the worst case scenario is that there was a leak in the pressure vessel, and that would be an instantaneous implosion.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television.
So I know I typed it in the chat, but this guy speaking, I'm going to play a couple of his videos. He would have the best information on the trip down there, the trip back, and how it is down there, because he did make the trip last year. They did get stuck last year. Thank God they were able to get out. They got stuck in the propeller. I think he said an hour and a half or something after control. Let's see one. You already know what's up, right? Dang on internet. I'm sorry, y'all. Here we go. Girl, I ain't never played no hide and seek in the desert. Y'all know that I never had connection issues when I was in Arizona. And now I come here and I always have connection issues. Get with the program. Here we go.
This is not an airline. These submersibles are one-off. There's no spare. There's no previous version. There's one of it, and things go wrong all the time. Out of every week excursion, they have 5 attempts to reach the Titanic, including the week that I was out there. And usually they make it down only once, maybe twice, sometimes not at all. So mechanical problems are par for the course, happens all the time, usually little things. So when I heard that they lost, they don't have radio because regular radio waves doesn't travel through the sea. So initially I thought it was just a glitch.
Okay. I mean, you had experience in this yourself because on your voyage, you actually lost communication with the surface, or essentially were lost for 2.5 hours. What happened in your case to cause that? And then what happened during the time you were lost?
So just to be clear, I was not on that voyage where the sub was lost. And when I say the sub was lost, I don't mean that it lost communication with the ship on the surface. That's what's happening now. What happened last year was the sub itself was lost in the dark on the bottom of the sea. It could not find the Titanic. There's no GPS down there. So the sub relies on instructions from the ship on the surface. And the instructions were not helping the sub to, you know, they would say, turn right, go 100 yards. And they never found it. They spent hours down there just driving around in the dark.
That must have been excruciating. So if it's different from your experience, what then, just having had the experience, what is your thinking in terms of what could have gone wrong in this case?
I mean, really, there's only three possibilities. Possibility number one is that they are on the surface somewhere, bobbing away. This sub has 7 different return to the surface backup systems. So sandbags that drop off, lead pipes that drop off, the legs can drop off. There's an air balloon, there's thrusters. And one of them works even if everybody on board is unconscious. So one of them is a timed release thing that sends the sub to the surface after X amount of hours. So maybe they're out there bobbing away, but remember, they're bolted in from the outside. So they have no way to get out or get more air. So that's terrifying thing number one, is that the Coast Guard is just looking for a white capsule in 900 miles of whitecaps. The other possibility is that they're underwater. And that's even scarier, because even if they're alive, if they're down there, even if we find them, if they're down there, we have no way to get them back up. There's no submersible that can reach those depths that can be brought to this site in time, let alone that has towing capacity. They don't. A submersible is not a submarine. A submersible doesn't have very much power. It has to be carried everywhere on a ship. And so it couldn't tow this thing to the surface.
So that what you've just outlined is what every official is saying is the worst case scenario if it's on the seabed, way those thousands of meters below and unreachable. And of course, that's why race against time comes into play, and the discussion about how much oxygen they have available to them. The capacity we had in mind would be 96 hours through until Thursday. When you were in the submersible, I mean, did you discuss oxygen supply? Was it clear around you what the sources of breathing air were, David?
Very, very clear for me, because I'm kind of a techie and I really wanted to know. So there are carbon dioxide scrubbers. These are the same things they have in spacecraft to convert CO2 back into oxygen. If those fail, there's a backup system of scrubbers. They look like fly strips that can be hung from the ceiling in an emergency. And if that fails, there are oxygen tanks, like scuba tanks, under the floorboards. So, and the 96 hours thing, by the way, is what the company says is the total of all these systems, but it has never been tried. It's a calculation. It doesn't take into account 5 panicking passengers.
I was going to say 96 hours, best case scenario, not people moving around, people who are not accustomed to deep water exploration, that kind of thing. As you say, breathing in heavily and panicking. So that too is a big question about just the actual number of hours. What were your impressions of emergency preparedness overall?
I mean, the whole thing is run like a rocket launch. So there are these elaborate checklists and inspections, and all of us, the entire crew, were required at mandatory briefings twice a day, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. on the weather, the state of the sub. To that extent, it was very well run, very careful. But when you talk about emergency procedures on board the sub, I mean, they gave us a fire training. There's fire extinguishers. There's a breathing mask for smoke. But beyond that, what could you do? I mean, you're locked inside a can, 2.4 miles down. The only thing in your power to do is go back to the surface.
Did you have any misgivings about going on this voyage as a result?
I will admit that the night before the dive, I did not sleep at all. I was exhausted. I was petrified. Once I was actually in the sub, and it's under the command of Stockton Rush. He's the CEO and the designer of the sub, and he's, by the way, the one driving. He's the pilot of the missing sub as well. And he told me that they've done 20, 25 of these dives over the last 3 years, successfully, no injuries, no harm, no deaths. I felt better, and I was very excited to do the dive.
So you were reassured by what he said. What were your other impressions of him, having interviewed him as you did and seen him in action, as we await word of his whereabouts as one of the 5 men?
He's a really interesting guy. He's a blue blood. He's a direct descendant of 2 signers of the Declaration of Independence. He has experience designing and flying airplanes. He wanted to be an astronaut. He has experience designing and building these submersibles. And he freely acknowledged that this is not, it's not an airline. It's not a Toyota. He would say, safety is a relative term. If you want to be completely safe, don't get out of bed. So to Stockton, risk is part of life. And if you want to do amazing things, you have to take risk in exchange.
And you can't have been unaware of the risks in all of this. There are a lot of waivers to sign, aren't there, David?
You do sign quite a waiver. It is paragraph after paragraph, literally outlining all the ways that you could die.
Seriously.
It says, I understand that being on the support ship is very dangerous. The support ship is designed for the petroleum industry, not for tourists, and that I could slip, I could fall, I could get hit by a door, I could get crushed by machinery. It talks about getting onto the submersible. That could be dangerous. And then, of course, the dive itself could result in permanent injury or death. And you have to sign that.
And you did. And you have an experience to share. And you've been giving us some incredible perspective on having been on a voyage like this. At this point, David, and maybe you've alluded to it already, but what is the most worrisome aspect to you right today, this morning?
The single most worrisome aspect is that when they were 2/3 of the way down on Sunday, they lost communication. There's 2 sources of communication. There are these little text messages they can send back and forth to the ship. And then there's safety pings every 15 minutes that just says, we're still here, the sub is still working. Both of those stopped an hour and 45 minutes down. And there are only 2 things that could mean. Either they lost all power, or the ship developed a hull breach and imploded instantly. Both of those are devastatingly hopeless.
David, we will hope that that is not the worst case scenario that we end up reporting on, but thank you very much for, again, your insight and sharing your experience. CBS, are you doing a follow on this, by the way, this weekend? Should we look for it on Sunday morning?
You should. This Sunday, I'm doing a follow-up story, including more of the interviews with Stockton Rush and the other characters.
Okay, we will certainly be tuning into that. Thank you again, David. I appreciate it. CBS News.
He seems very hopeful because he said that he's going to have an interview with Mr. Rush, who is missing in the submersible right now. This is another video. You guys, I'm playing videos done by Mr. David here because he has experience in the submersible last June actually. Has experience going down to the Titanic, has experience getting stuck in the Titanic, and thank God came back up. But they said that the Titan was the only one in the world that could go down to the Titanic, and thank goodness there won't be another one, hopefully not another one made to go down to the Titanic. Let the Titanic rest in peace right where it is. People, just look at the pictures that you have, video that you may have. Yeah, just don't go all the way down there, people. Just don't go all the way down there, please. All right, here we go.
I watched the story you did for CBS this morning. I almost had a panic attack watching you get into that thing. It's so small. How big is it, and how long were you told you could survive in it?
It's about the size of a minivan, but it's a cylinder, so it holds 5 people.
Is this the one that I
There's no
just played?
chairs, there's no couches. You are sitting on the floor with your back against the curved sides. As I'm sure you've heard, there's 4 days worth of air, there's three different systems. There's as your previous guest referred to, there's a scrubber, the same ones they have in spacecraft, that converts the carbon dioxide you breathe out back into oxygen. If that fails, there are these, they look like fly strips. You hang them from the ceiling, that they're backup scrubbers. And if that fails, they have scuba tanks, oxygen tanks, under the floor of this thing that you can pull out. But there's no food and water apart from the one sandwich and the one water bottle you bring with you. All there is by way of a toilet is...
This is the same one I just played, huh? Did you hear him just say a bottle of water and a sandwich? You heard him just say that, right? Since we just played that one, I'm going to go ahead and play this one. These are very interesting videos, you guys. So thank you for the ones that are staying with me to learn more information. And thank you to the replay watchers that have made it this far. Yes.
You a legendary name in the world of deepwater exploration and ocean engineering. Retired U.S. Navy Captain Don Walsh is a former submarine commander and this country's very first ever submersible pilot. Captain, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview tonight. You're just the perfect expertise for this. I'm going to start with a very simple question. Do you have optimism that they are going to be able to find this vessel?
No.
That's a hard answer to hear. Tell me why you feel this way.
I've been around this business for more than 60 years, and I've seen a whole lot of things. I'm one of the signatories on that letter you're talking about, the New York Times, because those of us in the deep submergence business are really concerned. We only need one accident to get everybody excited and start questioning whether or not this was a safe kind of business, that is, putting man in submersibles, whether that man paid for a ticket or as a researcher or just doing some useful work in the ocean. And so it put a stain on all of us if they had an accident. And that's why we were trying to offer some cautionary advice to OceanGate, but clearly it wasn't taken.
It's hard to have this conversation given that Stockton Rush, the CEO of OceanGate, is one of the people on board right now whose life is in peril. But I do want to dig in a little deeper on this with you if I can. And thank you for, informing me that you're one of the signatories on the letter. Can you help me understand the viewport, which is the big window through which the passengers and the pilot can see what's outside, presumably to see the wreck of the Titanic, presumably to see the flora, the fauna underwater. Is that the issue of this experimental craft, that the way the viewport was constructed, the engineering that allowed for that viewing port?
Well, as I recall, the viewport, as produced by the manufacturer, was not rated for that kind of depth. The manufacturer said this in delivering the viewport. Now, that's hearsay on my part because this all happened a while ago, and I've, gone off and done other things. But that was just one thing. A big thing was how the pressure hull was built. It's a wound filament sort of device, like fiberglass. I'm simplifying, but it's not solid metal. It's made out of probably a carbon glass fiber, something like that. Again, I'm sort of winging it here, but I think I'm close. And what they do is they wind it around and basically make a mesh of it. Well, that's really good for internal pressure. In fact, the rocket motors for many missiles use that kind of structure because if you've got the pressure inside, then and you're containing it with this woven fabric, if you will, it's very, very strong. But if the pressure's on the outside, we just don't know enough about that. And all of the protocols that we follow in building these manned submersibles or any kind of pressure human occupancy pressure vessels like a diving chamber, things like that, we make out of conventional materials like metals, metallic materials, steel, titanium. We know how to do that. We know how to design. We know how to test them, and we know.
You guys see right there, they do have lights inside of it, but if the power goes down, the lights go out. But they do have lights inside of it.
How to measure the stresses and strains put on them. But this filament type of thing, we have no guidance on that. And the organizations, and there's several, they're called classification societies, which set down the rules for the design, the construction, and the operation and the maintenance of submersibles, manned submersibles. And they have inspectors at every stage of the way. So everything has to get approved and signed off. You're built to a standard set of issues. I'm on one of the advisory committees for the American Bureau of Shipping, which is the US-based classification side. They do tankers, cargo ships, and submarines, submersibles. So it's all out there. Why they wanted to do this radical type of hull design, we just could never figure out, we being sort of our community. And that was the essence of our cautionary letter.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find news.
I have one more video I want you to watch, and if it's the video that I think it is, it will be very interesting. Here we go. Video I was hoping to find anyway. So here we go.
Atlantic. This is very serious stuff. The Titan was reported overdue on Sunday after diving toward the site of the Titanic shipwreck. Shipwreck, it's pronounced. CBS News' David Pogue went on board the Titan last year for a story about the sub and the company that owns it. The name of the company is Ocean Gate Expeditions. Here's a clip from David's story.
Titan is the only 5-person sub in the world that can reach Titanic depths, 2.4 miles below the sea. And yet, I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
So the pressure vessel is not MacGyver at all, because that's where we work with Boeing and NASA and the University of Washington. Everything else can fail. Your thrusters can go, your lights can go, you're still going to be safe.
Boy, in a statement, Ocean Gate says this: they're exploring and mobilizing all options to bring the crew back safely. It went on to say that it's, quote, thankful the extensive assistance that we've received from several government agencies and deep sea companies in the search. David Pogue joins us now. David, I mean, this is just terrifying and so scary. We're all thinking about the people on board. When you heard that they were missing and there was no contact, what were your first thoughts as someone who's been there?
I mean, this entire industry, this adventure travel industry is dangerous. Going up in the rockets, visiting the volcanoes, everybody knows the risks involved. And I can tell you that these submersibles are one-offs. It's not like iPhones, there are thousands of them that can perfect. There's one of it. And so there are certain improvised, you know, he got the lights from Camper World. He drives the thing with an Xbox joystick game controller. So, but this is all standard in the field, and you know that it's a risk. So,
But when they first lost contact, why wasn't there effort to made to get to them immediately? How long was this trip supposed to last? Number one.
usually it's 10 to 12 hours. It's
Okay.
2.5 hours down, a few hours at the Titanic, and then a couple hours back up. Why didn't they send the alarm sooner? I can only guess it's because things go wrong all the time in this business. The time I was there, my dive at the Titanic only lasted 37 feet down, and then it had a mechanical problem and had to be hoisted back onto the ship. That's very standard. So they probably thought, well, the comms will come back.
David, to expand on Gil's question, are there any outside bodies outside of OceanGate that they paid to keep eyes on the sub just in case something like this happens?
No, it's in international waters. So this sub, as you sign on the waiver, you say, I understand that this sub has not been inspected or certified by any third-party body.
Whoa.
And
But
you know that
if you're paying that much money, wouldn't you want to have a backup plan to the backup plan to ensure your safety?
I mean, I should tell you that there are many safety features of this sub and of the procedures. It's run like a rocket launch. There are these long checklists, and there are twice daily briefings that everybody has to attend. There are 7 different ways to come back to the surface.
Then why haven't they? That's the real question. Why have we not seen this thing come back and into the sunlight?
That is the question that makes my blood run cold. Of those 7 different ballast systems, several of them work even if there's no electricity. One of them even works if everybody's passed out. It's a time-release sandbag that after 14 hours drops off by itself. So this thing should be bobbing on the surface. If it isn't, it could only mean 2 things. Either they got snagged on something on the bottom of the sea, which is pretty unlikely. There's nothing there but the Titanic. Or there was a breach in the hull and it instantly imploded.
Wow.
What do you think has happened when you look at the two? None of those are good. What do you?
None of those are good. The fact that they lost the signal 2/3 of the way down to the floor, that's really bad. That means something probably catastrophic happened to the whole thing.
The pressure is intense, but of all the things that you say were picked up at Camper World or Xbox, the hull itself was supposed to be Boeing and NASA and impenetrable.
The hull itself it was co-designed with the University of Washington and NASA. It's 5-inch thick carbon fiber, never been done before. Everybody told Stockton Rush, the CEO and designer of the sub, that he was crazy because that doesn't work that way. But in theory, the deeper you go as the pressure builds, the tighter the water is pushing in on those silver end caps and making it more and more waterproof. So that's why I didn't worry about implosion.
But what can you tell us about this company and the people that run it? Do you think they're being transparent here?
Stockton Rush is a really interesting guy. He's built and designed airplanes. He's built and designed previous submersibles. He's a direct descendant of 2 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. He is, I won't say cavalier, but he did say safety is relative. If you want to live in perfect safety, don't get out of bed.
Wow.
So,
But they've had successful dives doing this, right?
they have. They've been operating
More
for
than
3
once,
summers,
yeah.
and they've been down about 25 times.
Let's end on hope. You have some. What is it and why?
The hope is quickly fading, I'm afraid, because in theory, they have 4 days worth of oxygen. It's never been tested. Nobody's ever measured it. We're now 2 days into that. So it's half of that is gone. If they're at the bottom of the sea.
What do you mean no one has ever been down for 4 days?
Correct. No one's ever put 5 people in there and said, start the clock, let's see how long the air
In theory,
lasts.
it's supposed to have 4 days worth of oxygen, but
we don't
nobody's.
know.
Right. That's a calculation. So either they're underwater, which is devastating because even if we find them, there's no way to rescue them. The deepest submarine rescue ever performed was 1,500 feet. That's like this. This is 13,000 feet.
Oh, wow.
There's no other craft that can get down there in time.
But everybody has an idea about where they are. Why can't they just send something down to look in that area, even if there's an explosion, as you think could have happened?
Because there's
Why can't
only
they just-
3 or 4 machines that can go to that depth in the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they're not, they take weeks to prepare and they're not on site.
I see.
And suppose we had one, what would we do? Try to tow this thing up? I mean, the difference between a submarine, which is a torpedo-shaped thing that drives out of port on its own, and this thing, a submersible, is that this has to be carried everywhere. It has very little power. You can see in the picture, it's just these little plastic fans, basically.
So it's supposed to drop down and then just pop back up.
That's right. They release the ballast, they release the weight, and it just rises to the surface on its own.
The other thought, I think, is part of the hope is if it's on the surface now and it's located, it cannot be opened from the inside. So it has to be found in time. They will run out of oxygen even if
then
it's
open from the outside.
Yeah,
That's right. We were bolted in from the outside. There's 17 bolts on the outside. So the running out of air problem still affects us, even if they're at the surface right now. We need to find them.
Well, we heard someone say you need a miracle, and miracles.
Let's hope for one.
Yeah,
And we'll have a follow-up on CBS Sunday Morning this Sunday.
All right. Thank you, David.
Wow, you guys, this is crazy. I hope you learned something watching this on the Titan, the submersible, on how they work, on how it's made, on the people that's on there. I hope that I was able to answer a lot of your questions. I appreciate you still being here watching with me, and please hit that like button for me. I appreciate it so much. Y'all have a good night.